notes at the next level.
You are in the deep end of Todd McShay's Mock Draft 1.0 and our Sports Center special about said mock draft. We start these things earlier every year. In fact, I'm pretty sure right after we're done, we're going to start doing the 2020 draft before the 19 draft is over. Here, we sat the draft order this way. Through ESPN's Football Power Index projections, which gives the Cards a 6% chance to get the top slot, then the Niners, Raiders, Jets, and Falcons. The Cardinals, by the way, if you're wondering, and I know you are, haven't had the top pick in the draft since 1958 when they took Rice quarterback King Hill. You don't know who King Hill is, which means that didn't work out. Hi, everybody. Welcome into the Sports Center special, Todd McShay's Draft 1.0. Todd McShay is there. I am merely Trey Wingo. Somewhere in the ethosphere is the man, the myth, the legend, Mel Kiper Jr. will also be joining us. By the way, the draft runs April 25th through April 27th of 2019, not only on ESPN, but ABC. It is going to be a party, plus a lot of work. But really, it's going to be a party in Nashville. We are ready for it, which means we're 134 days away. Nashville is going to be the fourth different city to host the draft in a 4-year span, joining Chicago, Philadelphia, and Dallas. Two teams going to have multiple first-round picks. The Raiders have 3, thanks to trading away, Pro Bowlers like Khalil Mack and Amari Cooper. The Packers also picked up a first-round pick in the 2018 draft day trade. That means the Bears, Cowboys, and Saints, as it stands right now, don't have first-round picks. But for Chicago and Dallas, I think they're good with getting Khalil Mack and Amari Cooper. And it is setting up to be a defensive-heavy draft. Top 5 on Mel's big board are all defensive players, and Todd goes even further. The top 7 rank with him are on the defensive side. So we are ready to get this thing going. There he is. I knew he's floating around here somewhere. Mel is here. Todd McShay is here. And we're going to do this and get things going with the number 1 pick. You guys ready? Oh, there are the chimes. We got to go. And the number 1 pick is in. And the Cardinals have taken Nick Bosa, 6'4", 263. Now, he shut down his entire season after that air quote core injury in the TCU win. Some speculation that he could have come back, but we have plenty of tape on this guy to know what he can be. Yes, he is the younger brother of the Chargers, Joey Bosa. So there it is, the first pick off the board. It is Nick Bosa out of Ohio State going to the Cardinals. Now, before we dive any deeper here, let me explain our mock clock. Every mock draft discussion will have a running timer that you'll see on the screen.
You and your rules.
Well, I don't make them, I just enforce them. When the clock hits 0, it's time to move on, but these two never do. So let's put 2 minutes on the clock as a round figure. Bosa at number 1. Do we like this selection?
I like it because I made it. So,
good point.
Yeah. To me, he's a complete player and the most complete player in this entire draft class. He reminds me of his brother. Sometimes watching tape, I feel like I'm watching Joey. The hand technician, the leverage with which he plays, the ability to rush half a man. He just understands the position, plus the motor. I love Nick Bosa's motor. He plays so hard. That's why I think it's a joke when people start coming out and say, well, he quit on the team, he doesn't love the game, and all these other things. This guy's a competitor. He's going to give you everything he has. And the other thing to note, too, whether it's Arizona at 1, San Francisco, it could be picking at 1, the Jets, Oakland Raiders, all 4 of those teams, the top 4 teams right now in our projection, need edge rushers. So I think Bosa is a very likely pick with that first pick, no matter who's drafting at number 1.
Yeah, you think about the division. You got to get after it. Jimmy Garoppolo coming off the injury, obviously, when you're Arizona Cardinals, Russell Wilson, Jared Goff, so they need that closer, that finisher. You like to get an offensive player around Josh Rosen, just isn't one to take at this point. College right now is not developing offensive linemen, offensive tackles in particular, and wide receivers. It's just not happening, and that's impacted this draft.
You mentioned potential blowback, and Mel and Todd, in about the 60 seconds we have left on this discussion, it's going to be brought up. How much of a fact do you think it is going to be that he decided not to return for a team that had a chance, Mel, to play in the national semifinals?
He had a significant injury, and he had a surgery, and I think doing what Nick did was common sense. It was getting him ready. He wasn't quitting on the team. He was doing what's best in his interest in terms of his next injury will come as an NFL professional, paid professional, not in college. He had no other choice.
Listen, I was on the field when Jalen Smith suffered the injury.
Horrible.
Coming out of Notre Dame and lost a lot of money because of it. Same with Jake Butt, their tight end from Michigan, and lost a lot of money because of it and still is not right in the NFL. So as much as you'd love to see these guys try to play through, he had an injury. We don't know how long it was going to take for him to recover anyway. And if you have this much money on the line, potentially $25, $27, $30 million guaranteed, you got to do this.
Oh, I agree, but you know that's coming, so we'll have to deal with that going forward. You heard the chimes. Music to our ears. That means the next pick is in. That is the San Francisco 49ers, and they take Rashawn Gary, 6'5", 283 pounds, out of Michigan. By the way, if this goes this way, it'll be the 4th time in the last 5 drafts that San Francisco has decided to go offensive lineman in the first round. Is that an indication they haven't gotten it right the last few times? Once again, 2 minutes on the mock clock. The Niners are seeking an edge rusher, among other things. What stands out for him here?
Well, on Sunday, before the teams played, they were picking number 1, and I gave him Bosa, and it made a lot of sense, and it felt like a good fit. Now at 2, there's not another edge rusher that you really love in terms of pure speed off the edge. I do think Gary can be an effective edge rusher, but his game's built a little bit more on power than it is with speed and your classic edge rusher, the right defensive end or 3-4 outside backer. With that said, I think he's the best player on the board. I could have gone Devin White, the LSU inside linebacker. I think he's going to be a great player. I really do, but it's tough to take an inside linebacker at number 2. Love to give some offensive weapons. There's just not any in this class. That's going to be the trouble for all these teams picking early, Mel, that are looking for offensive playmakers.
Yeah, the issue I would have here is, Todd, Rashawn Gary, kind of an enigma. Number 1 kid coming out of high school at any position. The sack numbers weren't there. 9.5 sacks in 34 games. Think about the 49ers. You got Solomon Thomas, DeForest Buckner, Eric Armstead. Combined, they have 13 sacks. Myles Garrett alone has that many. So I think the pass rusher that you need, the edge guy, Gary hasn't been yet. Will he be in the NFL? Maybe, but we haven't seen it up to this point.
How big is the talent gap between Gary and Nick Bosa, in both of your opinions?
I don't know that it's a huge talent gap necessarily as much as it is a production gap. And I think, Gary at times flashed that elite playmaking ability, but he wasn't consistent like Bosa has been throughout his career, Mel.
Yeah, 17.5 sacks for Bosa, 9.5 sacks for Gary. That's career, and Bosa's was done in 5 fewer games. So he's the edge guy. You know what you're getting with Nick Bosa. Gary's got to step it up from a pass rush standpoint once he's in the NFL. If you don't get it done against collegiate kids who aren't going to be in the NFL, or you're going to do it against the best in the world, we'll see on Rashawn Gary.
And again, if they go this route, 4 times in 5 years, Eric Armstead, DeForest Buckner, Solomon Thomas,
right.
Now him, 4 times in the last 5 drafts, if they go this route, the San Francisco 49ers will take on the defensive line. I'm not sure that's an indication of them not succeeding at that position or just basically going where the talent is in this draft.
Right. Yeah. To me, if they go in that direction, it's because of the talent there and trying to just take the best available player.
All right, by the way, the chimes mean the next picks are in, so let's take a look at the next few picks as we see them. Shocker! They're all defensive linemen. We got Quinnen Williams, the defensive tackle out of Bama, Cleveland Furl, the defensive end out of Clemson.
It's an audible on that one.
That was an audible. Furl is now, and Dexter Lawrence, another defensive tackle out of Clemson. So you have 2 Clemson defensive linemen here going. And now we're going to set up mock speed. 45 seconds for you, Todd, to break down these 3 picks.
Quinnen Williams going to the Raiders would make sense because they need defensive help. Williams came out of nowhere. Big number 92 this year. The strength, lower body, ability to drive defenders, getting off of blocks this year like he's never done before. He's been absolutely dominant. Then after that, you've got Furl, who's changed his name from Ferrell to Furl. It's very confusing, but he's the edge rusher. He's the 2nd best edge rusher behind Nick Bosa in this class. Does a great job with his quick first step. He can bend around the edge, and he also does a great job with his hands. He's continued to improve, and his production is there, unlike with Rashawn Gary. And then finally, Dexter Lawrence, the other Clemson defensive tackle. He's your big nose tackle. He is a road grader. Now, he's got good athleticism when he's healthy. He's had a foot injury the last couple years. Been better this year than last year, but he's never going to be an elite pass rusher, but he can be disruptive in the middle, and he's great versus the run.
By the way, you think 2 defensive linemen from Clemson? Oh, wait, there's going to be another one coming, which is really interesting. By the way, this would be 5 of the top 6 picks are defensive linemen. The last time we had 5 defensive players taken first in the draft, that would be 1991, where they're actually the first 6 players were all on the defensive side.
The only time in the draft
in
history,
the common draft era.
1967.
Going back to You're good. We are just getting... Well, as we continue with our McShay Sports Center special mock draft 1.0 for the 2019 draft, let's go back to last year for a second, shall we? 5 quarterbacks taken in the first round, starting with Baker Mayfield. He leads all rookies with 19 touchdown passes, and the Browns have won 5 games. Let me say that again. The Browns won 5 games. They won 0 last year. The Jets traded up to get Sam Darnold third. He's had some positive, but he leads the NFL with 15 interceptions this season. That's okay. Peyton threw 28 his rookie year. And he also threw 538 touchdown passes. Next was Josh Allen, 7 to the Bills. He's a really good runner. Problem is he's a quarterback. So he's doing really good things with his feet. Needed work on the arm. Josh Rosen was the 4th quarterback off the board, 10th to the Cards. He's thrown 10 touchdowns, 12 picks. His team is 3-7 when he starts. And the Ravens finished by taking Lamar Jackson. He has come in for an injured Joe Flacco. And when he starts, the Ravens have gotten off to a 3-1 start. So as we continue to work our way down the big board, let us take a look at picks 1 through 7. And let's look at number 6, Jonah Williams.
And Jonah Williams is a guy who played right tackle early in his career at Alabama, has moved to left tackle, and has been a very consistent starter. I don't know that you want to classify him as an elite athlete, but he's close. And I think for the Bills, they need multiple offensive linemen, so this just seemed like a good fit.
And then there's number 7, the quarterback Justin Herbert out of Oregon. The big question for him is he actually going to be in the draft? You have him as the first quarterback taken in the draft should he go in there, but he's made noise that he might want to come back and play another year up in Oregon. So it seems like all the quarterbacks in this draft, there's a lot of question marks, especially about which ones will actually be available. As we continue on this mock, let us bring in one more time through the magic of this thing behind me, Mel Kiper Jr. So once again, it's our mock clock, 2:30 on the clock. Todd, let's start with you. Herbert, if he is in the draft, he's the first one off the board for you. Why?
Yeah, I think it would be a really interesting race, if you will, between he and Dwayne Haskins from Ohio State. If you love Herbert, you focus on the mobility for his size and then the arm strength, and then the flashes, too. The accuracy has been inconsistent, but watch this throw. It's a perfect example of what he can do. Extending the play with that mobility. Look how off balance he is when he goes to make this throw. He flipped his hips back on and then put the ball exactly where it needs to go. You know, he flashes like this a lot. There's, again, inconsistency when you talk about some of the decision-making, some of the accuracy with anticipation throws, but he's got a chance to be special if he's developed properly and continues to get good supporting cast and people around him.
And we certainly saw how important that development is when you see what Patrick Mahomes has been able to do with a guy like Andy Reid, an offensive
And the difference
genius.
between Baker Mayfield compared to, you know, Sam Darnold and Josh Allen this year. You can just see it already. Yep.
All right, Mel, let's play the perspective game, and you're the historian here. Where would you rank Herbert among last year's first-round quarterbacks? Because, again, he'd be the first one off the board this year. Where would he have been if he went out last year? I know he couldn't.
Yeah, after the elite group that went in the top group, 10, that group where Rosen ended, that's where he would have fallen in that next line beyond Rosen. Yeah, I think when you look at right now, he hasn't wowed me over. Josh Allen did in several games. He certainly did in their bowl game when he came back from the injury. Justin Herbert had that Stanford game, no question about it, was his best game of the year, but he just didn't have the year you expected him to have, considering, as Todd said, all that talent that he possesses. Now, they did have the left tackle got hurt. That impacted the offense. All that is still collegiate football. He should have been better. I think another year would really benefit him, and maybe, guys, solidify him as the #1 pick overall or right up there with Tua next year. I think he needs another year. This year, though, if he comes out, he's raw, he needs time. He'd be right in that mix to be a top 10 pick on talent and potential, not how he performed this year.
Well, that's interesting because you could have both Tua and Fromm coming out in 2020, and he would probably be behind those guys. So monetarily, maybe it makes more sense to get out now and knowing you're being the #1 quarterback in the draft.
It's a really interesting discussion, and it's a decision he's going to have to make right after the bowl game. And I always say, if you got to be ready to play.
Right.
You're going to make so much more money off of a second contract, especially at the quarterback position, if you're ready to play. Don't come in the league just because it's a down year at quarterback, because if you come in the league and things don't go well for 3 years, you're going to be looking for a job.
Yeah, it's interesting. Mitchell Trubisky sort of played that card, and so far it's working out, especially now he's got Matt Nagy with him.
Exactly.
His head coach that has come over and really developed him in his second year. So here are the top 10 picks in the draft. Todd, quickly on 8 and 9, what do you see?
Oh, Buccaneers obviously need defensive help. Greedy Williams is
greatest name ever.
I know, it's perfect for corner. He's the best cover corner in this draft. Just loose hips, can cover down the field. Really is the type of guy that it can develop into your man-to-man guy against a #1 wide receiver. And then after that, Josh Allen had a monster season. He's always been productive at Kentucky, but he developed as a pass rusher this year, 14 sacks and 5 forced fumbles. big-time season for Josh Allen.
Bills fans, relax. It's a different Josh Allen. He's the rushdown out of Kentucky. And there you see Dwayne Haskins at 10 going to the Giants. Oh, Giants fans would be happy with that. Here now, your ultimate Dwayne Haskins Buckeye highlight.
Now, if you come to Ohio State, what position you going to play?
Quarterback.
All right.
Well, college here.
You going to college?
Haskins taking over. It's his team now.
I know you see me, yeah, I'm looking like a train coming, full steam ahead.
A lot to like about Dwayne Haskins from Ohio State.
Dwayne Haskins has been outstanding.
He's amazing with the ball. He can make any throw on the field.
He's got that kind of ability to throw the football wherever he wants to.
To the near sideline, got a receiver there, caught, Buckeye touchdown! Dwayne Haskins with a rainbow throw.
He went out there and proved that, hey, I have an NFL caliber arm, I can make all the throws.
Tosses on a right angle. He's got it in the end zone.
The most points ever scored by Ohio State against Michigan.
For a young quarterback to get this kind of experience, you can just imagine how much better he's going to get.
There's no doubt Dwayne Haskins is a Heisman candidate and should be in New York City.
He was in New York City for the Heisman Trophy. He came in third of all those quarterbacks, but he might be the most pro-ready quarterback of all three of the Heisman finalists, being Kyler Murray, the winner, and Tua Tagovailoa out of Alabama. So 2:30 back on our mock clock. What makes him number 10 for you, by the way?
He's a pocket passer who has only started 13 games. Well, 14 starts when he goes to the NFL, assuming that he makes that decision. Mitch Trubisky had 13. We talked about the whole process, and you just talked about how things are working out with the right supporting cast. Haskins is, to me, he's got great touch, very good accuracy. I watched the first tape I studied of him, Penn State. Struggled for 3 quarters in that game and then started to play a lot better. And then as I started in the process watching more and more tape of this guy, especially in big moments, Michigan, Northwestern in the Big Ten Championship, he was lights out. Yeah. He understands reading progressions. He goes through things quickly. He's got mobility. He's not a great runner, but he's got enough mobility, and he's got a good arm to make every throw in the NFL. I think Haskins, when it's all said and done, could be the first quarterback taken, but certainly when you start talking about the Jaguars, the Giants, the top 2 teams in terms of needing quarterbacks up at the board, Mel, I think he's going to be a fit there if he decides to come out in 2019.
And guys, the Michigan game made him what he is right now. That's a game against Don Brown, the best defensive coordinator in college football. 7 guys off that defense will be playing in the NFL, and he lit them up. And in-game adjustments, halftime adjustments, that's Don Brown's specialty. He had no answer for Dwayne Haskins in that Ohio State offense. That allows Haskins to really have a chance to be this high a draft choice. That Michigan game for Dwayne Haskins was spectacular.
By the way, just the way this sets up right now with the Giants having the pick and you put them there, if you're a Giant fan, you are loving this, because the whole knock, if you took Saquon Barkley, was you have an older quarterback and you're passing on a guy, and for a running back, we can get one in the 3rd round. You're not getting a running back like Saquon in the 3rd round. He has been incredible. So you get the home run running back last year, and then a guy like this falls to you in the 10th spot this year. That's a perfect scenario for Giants.
It is a perfect scenario, and you wouldn't have thought it, because everyone thought that they would bounce back a little bit more, and who knows, maybe if they win a couple more games, they may be in trouble and may not be in position to get one of these quarterbacks, but this would be the perfect scenario to get a special talent like Barkley and then to be able to find your quarterback that you can develop for the future in this year's class.
Mel?
Well, we'll see. I think that's a big-time look ahead to see, will they be here and will those quarterbacks come out?
All right, we'll find out. By the way, the production was just absolutely there. I mean, 47 touchdown passes. Absolutely incredible. 4,500 yards. All right, lots more coming on the mock. Kyler Murray. Well, to continue on our SportsCenter special, Todd's mock, one name you won't hear in this mock being drafted is Oklahoma quarterback Kyler Murray. Before Murray, there have been 24 Heisman-winning quarterbacks since 1970. Of those, only 8 made more than 50 NFL starts, although the book is still out on Baker Mayfield and Lamar Jackson. But that does include Marcus Mariota and Jameis Winston. Only 6 were Pro Bowlers, and only 2 have started a Super Bowl, Cam Newton and Jim Plunkett. The only Super Bowl winning starter would be Jim Plunkett. So as we have a discussion here on the SportsCenter special mock draft with Todd McShay and Mel Kiper Jr., the question is, if he was in the draft, where would he land? Because he's going to make $4.6 million to go play baseball for the Oakland A's. So let's say that wasn't something that was available to him. Where do you guys see him fitting into this draft?
If he was fully committed to the NFL, I think he would be a first-round pick. I really do. I think that's the way the whole position's going and offense is going, in the direction of players like this. Spread out, quick decision, quick trigger, accurate, can lead receivers to yards after the catch. And then you throw in the fact that he has this mobility and an uncanny ability, like a Russell Wilson, to know when pressure's coming, where it's coming from. And he's obviously, as a baseball player, has a great slide, a quick slide, and has done a great job of protecting his body throughout the year. So, to me, he would be a first-round pick, and I think he could go somewhere in the top 10. I legitimately do.
Wow. Mel, what about you?
Yeah, his numbers were amazing. They're better than Baker Mayfield's his final year. 70.9 completion percentage. Baker was at 70.5. Baker accounted for 49 touchdowns. Murray did for 51 touchdowns. Now, he had that phenomenal offensive line. All 5 of those Sooner linemen are going to be in the NFL. Even the redshirt freshman center Humphrey will be down the road in a high pick. Lost Rodney Anderson as running back, but anybody can run behind that line. Calcaterra made up for Mark Andrews' loss. Hollywood Brown was spectacular catching the ball. So he had a lot of weapons around him, and he had that great line. But the bottom line is, Kyler Murray was off the chart all year. And where would he be? He'd be the outlier. He'd be the wild card that you kind of separate from the rest and say, hey, do you want to take a chance on a 5'9" quarterback? Only one we've ever had has been Doug Flutie, nobody else. Russell Wilson, 5'10" ¾ At some point, you're too short. Is 5'9" it? We don't know yet. Today's NFL is different
what's
than it
the
was
difference?
in the 80s and 90s. Somebody would take a shot on him in the first round.
An inch and 3/8. I mean, what's the difference? And we don't even know that he's just 5'9". He could be 5'9.5". We're talking about an inch. I don't see.
We'll get that at the combine, right?
Yeah.
But it is interesting. Baker's success may be helping him and people thinking about that because people were concerned about Baker's height.
No question.
And he's shorter. And you just wonder, though, as a quarterback, because we see other positions, how long could he stay away from football and play baseball before you get worried? Okay, we continue on the draft, and we go through these picks here. You have Devin White, 11 to the Bengals.
Yeah, Devin White is today's NFL linebacker. Instinctive, quick, can stay on the field all 3 downs, can cut sideline to sideline, and really good in coverage.
And then you see at 12, Ed Oliver, the defensive tackle from Houston, going to the Browns. Now, in your way too early mock draft, you actually had Ed as #1 overall.
That's why we don't do way too early mock drafts, right?
We actually do. But anyway, he's an interesting guy because as you've seen him be such an interior presence going forward for Houston when he played, now he had some injury issues this year, there were the comparisons at times to some Aaron Donald, which a lot of people think might be the MVP of the league. So let's start the mock clock, 2:30 on here. Let's get this going. Where are the comparisons pro and con in your minds with Aaron Donald?
Size. Yeah. But Aaron Donald was a little bit bigger, and I think that's the big issue right now when you're talking about Ed Oliver. He's 270, 273 pounds, somewhere in that range.
He's listed as 292.
Right, exactly. So I could see some, the quick first step. He is quick and a great motor, just like you see with Donald. But the difference is, first of all, probably 20-ish pounds, and you got to figure out, are we going to move him outside, or as a 3 technique, can he be on the field and hold up throughout an entire season and for 50, 60 type snaps in a game? And then the other thing is, when you study Donald, and I went back and watched him at Pitt to make sure that the comparison was fair or not fair, and it wasn't fair because Donald was exceptional and remains exceptional at getting off of blocks and finishing as a pass rusher. Oliver's outstanding and exceptional, I would say, as a run defender in that regard, but as a pass rusher, he's never developed into an elite finisher. So he would have to, at the next level, improve in that area to become even close. I think he's more Grady Jarrett, Mel, than he is Aaron Donald.
Yeah, I think that the sack totals, I mean, you talk about 13.5 career sacks. Aaron Donald, over a 3-year period, forget 4, go to the last 3 years, doubled that number, okay? Yeah. So I think that's the issue here. 272 in terms of weight. We don't have that body type you don't see for defensive tackle now, and the limited sack numbers are the issue with him being the #1, #2 pick overall, and not getting pushed down just a bit, as Todd suggested, could happen.
Any issues with the situation with him and the jacket? And he was warming up when he had a knee injury, jumping all over the field, and Houston head coach Major Applewhite said, take the jacket. Is there going to be any blowback with that?
Some NFL scouts have mentioned, more so the not playing, deciding to not play and kind of mailing it in the second half of the season than it was that situation. But for the most part, most people I've talked to, not an issue, really not an issue for me, because the difference is, like Bosa, when you put on the tape, the motor's outstanding. He plays every down, and he gives you all the effort that you expect from a premier-type player.
Mel?
Yeah, I think the issue is, and a GM told me this a month ago, and Todd, 272 is what I was told. He's 272. Right. What's he going to be at the Combine, Pro Days? We'll see, but right now that weight is what was brought up to me as the issue.
It is interesting because so often we look at quarterbacks. What is his hand size going to be at the Combine? What's his height? I think a lot of people are going to go to Ed Oliver and say, what is he actually going to weigh? Right. And if he bulks up, will he still have the same quickness and speed that he had when he played for the University of Houston? You've heard the chimes. Those are music to our ears. Let us go back to the big board and take you through some of the other picks. Mock speed report, Todd, on these picks, and let us get them going 13 through 16. Rock and roll.
Yeah, the Redskins need help in the offensive line, so I went with Cody Ford here from Oklahoma. He came out of nowhere, really, this year. Starter and dominant, physical, tough, and really a nasty offensive lineman. Projects as a right tackle, maybe as a guard. Then you've got Greg Little, very different coming out of Ole Miss. He's more of a finesse left tackle. Has to get a little bit stronger and improve with his hands, but he's a guy that has the athleticism to be a good starting left tackle in the NFL. Then you got Montez Sweat, defensive end with pass rushing ability off the edge. The Packers could absolutely use that. Then you've got the Eagles with the next pick. My favorite corner.
Your favorite one?
I don't think he's the most talented corner, but DeAndre Baker out of Georgia is the most instinctive corner and defensive back, I think, in this entire class. He's a lot of fun to watch.
Well, listen, you see the injuries that have piled up for the Eagles at cornerback this year. They could certainly use him. And by the way, do you know how heartbroken I'll be if it turns out that Montez Sweat doesn't work hard in practice? I will have problems if a guy named Montez Sweat doesn't put the sweat in. But picks the other time, 1991, and 8 defensive players in the top 10 would also set a common draft era, again, dating back to 1967. Look, there are code words we use all the time when we're talking about the draft: motor, upside, value pick. Mel makes them all. So let's play a little mock superlatives about some of these players instead of code words. You ready, Todd? We start with you. First up, who is the most under-the-radar sack leader, if it's all said and done, in this class coming out?
Just mentioned him, Ja'Kai Polite from Florida. This guy, first in the SEC with 11 sacks this year, really bursts on the scene. You can just see right there, he's long.
Right.
He's got explosive speed off the edge, the ability to rip through blockers, and finish, too. I love his quickness and his closing burst. And this year, again, he really finally put it all together. He had a special season.
All right, then would be the player most likely to lead the league in interceptions. Who would that be?
My favorite corner, DeAndre Baker from Georgia. Now, he's, again, not the most talented, not an elite 6'1" guy, doesn't have probably 4.3 speed. He's probably somewhere in the mid-4.4s, but he's so instinctive. He gets more jumps on throws in front of him than any corner I've seen in the country in the last couple of years. The production's been there too. 24 pass breakups and 7 interceptions in the past 3 seasons for Georgia. So an experienced player, and he's been proven at the highest level too.
And again, the Eagles need massive help at cornerback right now. Mel, you get to play too, even though it's Todd's special. So let's go with this. Darius Leonard, a second-round pick last year out of South Carolina State, is leading the NFL in tackles right now for the Colts by 17. He's blowing it away. So who's most likely to be this draft class, Darius Leonard, and lead the league in tackles?
I think it's Devin Bush, a linebacker with the Michigan Wolverines, all over the field. He's sideline to sideline. He's that kind of safety, becoming a linebacker, perfect for today's NFL. If he gets there to 21, the Ravens always protect those inside backers with that strong defensive line play. He would be outstanding. I think he would, at that particular moment, in that juncture, lead the Ravens in tackles. And if you want Trey, the best fit, could be Devin Bush. How about Devins or Wild? Devins are big time. Devin White, LSU linebacker. I think he's the 3rd best player in this draft behind Bosa and Quinnen Williams. If he gets there at 11, that would be a steal for the Cincinnati Bengals. He's the next Deion Jones. You see what Deion Jones means to the Atlanta Falcons defense. When he was there, they're great. When he's injured, they fall back dramatically.
Listen, they just produce defensive players out of LSU. It is remarkable how many come out, and this draft is littered with them again. Mel, Todd, thanks very much for the superlatives, but don't go anywhere. We got more to discuss, including the one team that, quite frankly, can control this entire...
Why is Mel disagreeing? He's 6'2". He's 248 pounds.
Todd! Who the heck is Mel Kiper Jr.? Mel Kiper who?
Great hands and even great greatness. Not to mention tremendousness.
Todd!
An amazing amount of amazingness. I haven't slept more than 17 seconds any given time preparing for the draft. I've said enough already.
This is impossible.
Apparently not.
Sounds like that scene from Finding Nemo. Mine. Okay, as we continue on the mock special, picks 1 through 26 are on the board. Todd, quick on some of these picks.
Derek Brown, this would be a steal if you were to fall to the Vikings at 22. The Steelers, Jalen Ferguson, kind of an under-the-radar player who's been rising, very productive at Louisiana Tech. And then Mississippi State would be the 2nd defensive lineman from that school, Jeffrey Simmons, defensive tackle for the Seahawks.
Okay, if you've been watching the board closely or following things with us as we continue on the SportsCenter special, you know that the Raiders have 3 first-round picks, 3, 25, and 26. They got these picks because they traded away first-round players that were Pro Bowlers for them. That's a separate story. So what is the potential for them with these 3 picks, 3, 25, and 26? I mean, they control this draft right now.
Yeah, they do. I mean, do you want to move around or do you want to stay home and get 3 players? I would stay home and get 3 players and even maybe move back based on the first pick, depending on who's available at that spot. I just looked down at my needs for the Raiders. It's almost every position: edge rusher, safety, linebacker, defensive tackle, wide receiver, running back, cornerback. I mean, they have so many needs to address. To me, you stay home, you're going to be picking probably twice in the 20s, and then somewhere likely in the top 5 picks, you can come away with 3 players that will help replenish this roster as it badly needs.
Mel?
Yeah, Irv Smith Jr., Todd, you would have had all Alabama Crimson Tide players instead of Noah Fant. But I think if you look at that group, Quinnen Williams had a phenomenal year. He's had up-the-gut pressure that John Gruden would want. They drafted Maurice Hurst and P.J. Hall in the 2nd round. He didn't produce like expected out of Sam Houston State. Then you get Deontay Thompson in safety, Alabama. I don't think he finished as strong as he started in midseason. He fell back a bit, not enough big plays, but tremendously talented. And Noah Fant underutilized in that offense, but off-the-charts ability. Jared Cook, really, for Derek Carr, was his key offensive weapon. Now you add a Noah Fant to the equation, that would help Derek Carr immensely.
Well, the way to look at it is maybe, just maybe, they should draft some guys like Khalil Mack or Amari Cooper. Or hold on, maybe the Raiders should hire someone to draft guys like Khalil Mack or Amari Cooper, and all their problems would be solved. Oh, wait. They just fired that guy, Reggie McKenzie. So there are issues all across the board with the Raiders. And then there's the question of what we do with bowl games going forward. You guys mentioned Noah Fant as one of the Raiders picks. A growing trend has been top NFL prospects sitting out their bowl games. Among the many who have pulled out this year are the #1 tight end, as we said, Fant, #5 quarterback Will Grier, along with 2 of Todd McShay's top 5, Rashawn Gary and Ed Oliver. The question now becomes, this isn't changing.
Right.
So how do both college teams and NFL scouts accept and deal with this new reality?
Accept and deal with it. I mean, that really is it. What are you going to do? I mean, colleges can't control it. The players are not getting paid. There's no contracts. And NFL teams really, at the end of the day, don't care. They would almost rather see them sit out so that there's not an injury. The problem is that some of these guys aren't even considered, first, and some of them even maybe 2nd-round picks. But at the end of the day, it's their decision. And I can't tell a young man that could potentially be making $1 million or $5 million or $25, $30 million guaranteed money that he can't make this decision. It's not right for us to be saying that. As much as you'd love to see him play in bowl games, to me, it's their decision.
Mel?
Yeah, and I think, Todd, the Will Grier situation at West Virginia, not a guarantee. I think you had him in the late first. Not a guaranteed first. Could be. Could that game have helped him? Possibly.
No, I have him in second, third, Mel.
Oh, yeah, 2nd round grade? Okay, 2nd round. So to me, why would you not play in that bowl game? And even some 2nd, 3rd, 4th rounders, you got to play. If you're elite, I get it. I get Ed Oliver playing against Army after what happened against Navy, not playing against that blocking scheme. Get that 1,000%. But when you see guys like Will Grier not playing and some others, that is very bothersome to me. And I think for some NFL people as well, will maybe look at that and have to evaluate and talk to that player about why did you decide not to play and with your team in that bowl game.
The only time it would bother me as an evaluator is if we're seeing a guy decide not to play and knowing that their team is going to one of the semifinals. I mean, again, it's his decision. He can make it. But at that point, you have to then really start to wonder about the competitive nature of that player, knowing that you got a chance to go play, to get in the national championship game and to win a national championship with your team. But other than that, again, these guys have to make the tough decisions for themselves, and I can understand all of these guys. Will Grier surprised me, the first quarterback that we've seen, but I understand it with all the other guys.
Well, Jalen Smith, the injury to him, and the other injury to Jake Butt at the Orange Bowl.
I was on the field for both of them.
Yeah, Jake Butt still hasn't recovered from those. The real curious case here that came close to what you're talking about is Nick Bosa, because they were in the consideration for getting into that Final Four, and there was a discussion whether or not he could have come back.
Right, but he had a medical issue, as we talked about. And you just didn't know when he was going to be able to come back. And so he made a decision then, and it's not like they knew that they definitely were going to be in this situation at the end of the year.
Yeah, Nick Bosa really doesn't belong in that discussion. That was separate. That was a major medical situation. I think everybody's in agreement. He made the right move for Nick Bosa. The other kid, as I mentioned, Will Grier, I'm playing in a bowl game. I'm trying to get into that first round guaranteed rather than be a borderline one. I'm playing at West Virginia, finishing out my career.
maybe the best perspective of this doesn't come from college, but comes from the NFL, because we see what's happening here with Le'Veon Bell, right? He opted not to play this entire season to protect himself from free agency. And if talent evaluators in the NFL say, look, if he didn't get 300 carries and he's better for me, I'm good with that, and he gets a big contract, maybe that'll be a tell to find out what happens, if that happens, with one of these college kids going forward and missing one of those semis. We still got more for you. Mike McCarthy is gone. Aaron isn't going anywhere. They paid him $100 million. So let's get that man some help. What's he going to get? Clock speed as we put a puppy on this, put a bow on this puppy. The final, I mean it this time. We're really putting a bow on it.
Let's do it.
At the end of this Sports Center special, let's go back to the board. Take us through the few picks, starting with 27 on the board.
All right, you've got Michael Dieter, who's a center guard prospect. The Texans need interior offensive line help. Then in the next pick, you've got the Chargers with Jerry Tillery coming out of Notre Dame. He's had a great season this year, versatile interior defensive lineman. Speaking of versatile interior defensive lineman, Draymond Jones out of Ohio State finally put it all together. He'd be a good fit with the Patriots at 29. They need D-line help. Then the Rams I have going next with the safety position. John Abram, only a one-year starter out of Mississippi State, but this guy is loaded with talent. And then Zach Allen, I think I probably like a little bit more than some other people. Powerful, great motor, and really some great quickness coming off the edge. He would be a good fit, I think, with the Chiefs, another team looking for pass rush help.
All right, for the purposes of this show, we get to Mr. Irrelevant. But he's completely irrelevant because it's not the last pick of the draft. It's just the last pick of the mock draft. Let's go there. The Green Bay Packers. And our last pick, according to Todd, is A.J. Brown, the junior wide receiver out of Ole Miss, 6'1", if he was 6'30", he'd be really tall. 6'1", 230 pounds, had 85 receptions, over 1,300 yards receiving, and 6 touchdown grabs. Mel Kiper Jr., thank you, sir, for being back with us. Guys, what do we think about the wide receiver draft in total here? Mel, let's start with you.
Well, you know, there's one guy, Marquise Hollywood Brown, but he's about 5'9" and change, about 165, 170 pounds, but he can get it done. He gets into that mid-first round discussion if he works out in tests like we think he will. After that, there's no guarantee. Paris Campbell, Ohio State, came on. DK Metcalf, third-year sophomore out of Ole Miss, got hurt. Okay? Anthony Johnson, Buffalo, okay, maybe second round. N'Keal Harry, Arizona State, Todd, does he separate enough? A lot of contested grabs for him. So I see a lot of twos. I love Keelan Doss out of Cal Davis as a sleeper in the third round, but only one guaranteed first-round pick, Marquise Brown out of Oklahoma.
Yeah, I couldn't agree anymore. And I think Brown, like you said, undersized. He's had some durability issues. He's one of those kind of track guys. He's an absolute burner and a big-time playmaker. But outside of him, a lot of question marks. Bigger receivers that struggle to separate. I think there's a shot, and it's not likely because the teams need wide receiver help, but there's a shot we only see one in the first round, which is amazing in today's NFL.
By the way, this is Todd's mock draft, but he was thinking of his pal Mel Kiper Jr., because not a single running back going in the first round, which is Mel's soapbox that he is willing to stand up on every time. Mel, Todd was thinking of you. Thanks for watching. We're not doing any more of these. That's a joke. We're doing tons.